What's poppin'? We got the house history class, man. Happy Corona break, y'all.
You know what it is. Go ahead, like and subscribe to the channel. This is where you finna learn about the history. You feel me? Tune in.
Straight like that.
What's up, guys? New video. Coach Hal's back in action. Thank you for everybody that liked my last video. It's kind of spreading to people more than just my U.S. History or World Geography class, which is great. I'm glad that you all love the positive message that we sent out of kind of building that routine, and I hope you did that Monday as we progress until Tuesday. Now, this video is going to be history related, so if you'd like to continue watching, if you're here for some of the positive messages, you're more than welcome to. This is for my U.S. history class, and this is going to be our first review video. I do want to make sure that you all are subscribing, liking, making sure that you have the ability to get notified when our new videos do come out, because that's going to be where you stay up to date. You guys have been doing a great job emailing me. You're doing a great job on the Remind. Great job on Schoology. Keep it up. It's day one. The governor is coming out and releasing new information now. It seems that we'll be closed until after our spring break. So we're going to be doing this for a while, which is good because we get more Fridays of guest speakers. This Friday will be our first guest speaker. I'm pumped about it. Had a bunch of people reach out to me to be a guest speaker. So I'm going to be really interested to see kind of these people that are coming on and what they have to talk about and what they bring to the table that you guys can take that is not history related. So that's good. But for my U.S. history class, so I have everything written down. You all know when I review with you, I'm a big right on the board guy. I like to tell you, you know, this caused this is what happened. And I'm just going to be reviewing our first note packet that we did for Domain 3. So I'll be putting this video in my Domain 3 playlist. And it'll be the first one you can watch, and it's over the first packet. Again, this is a review video going over the Transcontinental Railroad and kind of its impact of Western settlement, the West, Native Americans, everything like that we have been talking about. So picking right back up where we left off last week. Now, we have finished this packet, so if you have a question on maybe some boxes or some numbers that you from our guided notes, ask me, send me an email. I'll send you the filled out version, whatever it needs to be. But I'm also going to post a PDF file of what I have written down for you on my blog. So it's a good way for you to print that out. You're going to have it. You can put it in your notebook, whatever you want, instead of you guys having to take a picture of my whiteboard. So starting off, so we got into this unit. We talked about the Transcontinental Railroad. You know, it's a big thing when you're considering the United States. It's our big push to have the East Coast and the West Coast connected into one. Now, we talked about this. We talked about two companies that built this railroad and the differences between them, who was building them, the types of pay, the difficulty, what they had to go through, their conditions, all that stuff. So I'm going to start there. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the Central Pacific Company. All right, and what they were doing is they're building the railroad from the west, so California, going east towards that Omaha, towards that Nebraska area. And the people that are working on that railroad are Chinese immigrants. Now think about this. This whole time that we're building the railroad, or really this whole unit, you need to think about the conversations that we have had when considering labor. If you own your own business, I've given you scenarios of, hey, if you own your own business, how much are you going to pay someone to work for you? And a lot of you guys are going to say, you know, $7, $6, as little as possible, coach. Shoot, I ain't paying them. Heard it all. And that's because you all already understand that the more you pay somebody, the less money you are going to make, which is exactly the mindset of these people at this time. And it's kind of still the mindset of some of these companies in today's world, right? You only get paid a certain amount of money for working at Wendy's because you're working at Wendy's. Nothing wrong with that, just saying. So these people, these Chinese immigrants that are working, they're in very dangerous conditions. They are going through the Rocky Mountains. So they're dealing with high explosives. They're dealing with the fact that massive amounts of numbers of people are trying to work for the Pacific Union Company. And so workers don't really care if their laborers die or the conditions that they're facing, because of the simple fact of they're this key word, which is replaceable. So if one does get sick or die or whatever, they are easily replaced. Not saying obviously that they're like pushing them to that limit, but it's very, very, very close. They're not getting a lot of pay, and again, it's just very difficult because they're going through the Rocky Mountains. For any of you who has ever been west or seen the Rocky Mountains or flown over the Rocky Mountains or been up close to the Rocky Mountains, you understand they're huge. And trying to work through that and trying to build a railroad through that, there's a lot of complications with that, and there's a lot of things that go into that that are difficult, right? The other company that I talked about is the Union Pacific Company, right? They're working from the east side of the United States to the west side of the United States. So they are working from Omaha all the way to California, right? And these two companies are in a race to see who can get to that point the fastest. And I'll talk about where they meet in a second. For the Union Pacific Company, because they're working east to west, you need to, in your brain, associate east to west. Who is working or who is coming into the United States on the eastern side? What type of immigrants, what demographics, that kind of stuff. And you need to be able to associate Irish workers. Okay, if you connect Irish workers with the Union Pacific, you're golden. Connect those two again. They're not getting paid well. They are getting paid better than the Central Pacific, but they're not getting paid well. And people would describe the conditions as safer because you're not going through those mountainous areas, right? You're kind of building on the plains. But you are still dealing with Native Americans. And so you do have those issues of you are going through the land that technically the United States gave them, right? So it's a situation of you are invasive to their land once again. And they're not necessarily going to like the fact that these little towns are springing up on land and that you are coming through with this big steam engine, a valuable part of their land. The point where they're going to meet is Promontory Point, Utah, and that's where the gold spike's driven in. And you all always ask, did somebody steal it, yada, yada, yada. Just remember the gold spike is meant to deal with the wealth that the railroad is meaning to provide to the United States. Now, moving on to our next category, the United States and the railroad. It's great for business, right? Business is booming at this time. So a couple of things are going to happen in the United States, and a couple of companies or sectors or job sectors are going to start to experience growth because of the railroad, all right? And I've labeled these out: the cattle industry, the mining industry, and agricultural industry. Those all go up, 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 and up. Starting with the cattle industry, you're going to have this idea. First is going to start with this idea of an open system. So this means that cattle or cows are simply not wandering around, but they're not in an enclosed area, right? So it's efficient, but it's kind of hard to keep the cattle near the railroad because obviously you would like to have these cattle drives where you can put the cattle onto the railroad and ship them out east. Remember, everything's going east because that's where majority of the United States lives, right? They don't live in the West yet. California, while it's, kind of booming due to the gold rush and stuff like that, there's not that many people in comparison to what there is in the East. So remember all these things that I'm talking about right now, they're going that way. The second thing that I was talking about is the mining industry. So this is the thing of like the mining towns, or we had a discussion about ghost towns and all the things with ghost towns. And essentially what's happening is these towns are being built up as the railroad goes. As the railroad expands farther west, so do these towns. These towns pop up, but guess what? When the railroad gets too far out of reach, people may leave and they may go to a different town. And these mining towns are going to generate a lot of wealth for a lot of people too. So, and the third thing is agriculture. And I want to kind of hit back in on the closed range system real quick before I get into these things that make agriculture easier for farmers and kind of entice people to go west to become farmers. The closed range system. Okay, this is really, really huge. On the test, they always like to ask you what made the closed range system possible. And the key word is what technology is going to make this closed range system possible. And the technology, as you know, because it's on our daily quiz, is barbed wire. Barbed wire is important because it allows you to make fences. Fences help you keep things in. When you can keep things in, it's a lot more efficient when you're trying to get these cattle back onto the train to go back east. So barbed wire is huge when it comes to the closed range system. But I want to talk about farmers. I want to talk about their growth in the West. So one of the main things that helps them do this is the Homestead Act. Okay, you guys are always like, what's homestead mean? Just think of the first word, home. Okay, so what it's doing is it's trying to get people to go out west, right? The United States has this thing of manifest destiny. They want us to spread all the way to the west. Well, it's not really beneficial if we have this big chunk of land known as the plains, which like I think you all forget even exists in the United States, and nobody lives there. If you travel out west, if you fly out west, like I'm saying, and you're looking out of your airplane, I told you guys, you see all these little squares. And you're like, why? Who put all these squares here? And it's because of farming. And the big part about this is people are starting to move out west. And what the government is saying is they will literally give you land if you just go out west. That's all they want you to do. They want you to go out west. They want you to be a farmer. They want you to just move and populate this area of the United States, because at this time it's not populated, right? It's, you know, the term ghost town, associate that with the West, and that's kind of what you have. People aren't really necessarily moving out to the West, so they're trying to get you to go there. The other thing that we had talked about are the things such as steel plows, windmills, and fertilizer. All right, those three things, all of those make farming easier. Right? The steel plow, the fact that you can get your land ready for farming a lot quicker and a lot more efficiently is very, very important. The fact that you have fertilizer, right? Fertilizer is good because it makes stuff grow. Makes stuff grow, makes food grow. Food grows, makes you money. Therefore, fertilizer is very big. What you need to associate, and I wrote this down, all these things make farming easier, and when anything is easier, people want to do it. That's like a rule of thumb for life. The easier stuff is, people are going to try to do it. All right, and that is a major part of, you know, the West growing. But then our last little half of the packet, really the whole back sheet, deals with Native Americans and the resistance to the West. Okay, now everything I've told you is enticing people to go west. Now you got to understand, the people that are already there are the Native Americans. Okay, a little rewind to last unit. Okay, the court case that should pop into your head, Worcester versus Georgia. It deals with this guy by the name of Andrew Jackson, who, remember, the Native Americans are going to be forced, I guess, not quotes, but forced to move out west. They're going to sue the United States. It's going to go all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is going to actually rule in favor of the Native Americans, and they're going to say, you know, you're right. You can't just be forced to move because white people want the land for gold. And they're like, thank you. And then Andrew Jackson, he famously comes out, he said, you've made your ruling, Mr. Marshall, now enforce it. Which, if you go back to last unit in our $20 bill project, this is an expansion of his power, right? He is like, essentially saying, I have an army, you don't, what's up? Like, please try to stop me. And the Native Americans get moved out west. Well, they're out west, and then guess what? Here comes the railroad, and here comes all these people out west. They're not going to like it, okay? And so all these people are coming out west, and they're going to have a resistance. Now, the first thing I talked to you about the resistance of Native Americans in the West, and it kind of sets the I would say almost the theme for this, is the Battle of Little Bighorn. This is like Custer's final stand. This is where we get introduced to a man named Sitting Bull. Okay, Sitting Bull is going to be the leader of the Sioux Indians. And he's going to have this huge battle with Custer. And it's going to be a major, major win for the Native Americans. And it's going to be a major loss for the U.S. Army.